YouTube Ozzico and the Goat House is back, and we are on to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. And in this video, we're going to do our power rankings for the playoff teams, also the eliminated playoff teams. And as we talk about each team, we'll talk about the takeaway / recap from their wild card performance. So kind of a 2-for-1 special here. Power rankings for the playoffs plus the recap here. So excited about it. We have a playlist full of our playoff content. More to come. Weekly picks tonight. Score predictions Wednesday. So check it out. Off-season content rolling out as well on our channel. Like, subscribe, to notifications. I'm much appreciated if you do that. Follow us on Twitter. Very important. Keeping you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, a lot of coaching things going on right now. Talking during live games. Make sure you follow that Twitter. Link pinned in the comments for that, as well as our sponsors. GLD Shop, Liquid IV, Walk the Mock. Check it all out. So coming in at 14 is going to be the Bucs. So I did these rankings going into the playoffs, and I ranked the Bucs at 12. But I'm going to move them down at the bottom here. Very disappointing performance against the Cowboys. That was last night. And they were probably, based off the regular season, the worst team heading into the playoffs. But you think, they're starting to get some momentum. They got Tom Brady. They have talent on paper. Maybe they won't be the very worst. I know some people thought, I had them at 12. I think a lot of people thought they'd be even better than that. Just kind of a feeling. But, yeah, it didn't really work out against the Cowboys. There you see the difference from the first game of the year, which we can't take too seriously. But and then till now, just kind of a rough performance there. I mean, they started off hot on defense. I mean, after that first drive, it was like, they were tight in coverage. I know there was some drops, and Dak was missing some throws on that first couple series, really. But, and they couldn't really get much going on offense. And the Cowboys start getting going, and then you see the Bucs start getting going down the field as well. Brady throws that interception right to Jaron Kearse there, which you see his length coming up big. I know he threw it kind of right to him, but able to catch that, stay in, so that was a big-time play. But, the game could have been closer, and they still weren't going to win. You can see that, just the difference in talent and who showed up more, the Cowboys. But that game could have been closer if they would have executed there. So mistake by Brady, but you did notice that all those receivers kind of ran the same routes, like right into each other, so it kind of created a mess on the field there. So I don't know if that's play call / play design. The corners are playing pretty far off, so I don't know if the receivers decided, hey, slant's the best option, quick slant, and they all did the same thing. So that was a little messy, and it sounds like it hasn't been official yet, but it sure sounds like they're firing Byron Leftwich, which could be the right call. The coaching was just rough. They have a pretty good defense. They usually know how to draw up pressure, and they play tight in the secondary. They started off like that, then things kind of went south. And Todd Bowles is a very good defensive coach. I still think that, but I was a little disappointed with how things went in this game too. Kind of guys out of place. What happened to the run defense, this year compared to last year. And I don't know. So I didn't really think the coaching did a great job in this game. It was a disappointing one. I thought it'd be a lot closer just because Cowboys struggle in the playoffs. It's in Tampa Bay. They have Tom Brady. They're usually good at game planning for on defense. Getting Jensen back. Cowboys struggle on grass. Here they are on grass. I thought it'd be close for those reasons. So the Bucs were a bit of a disappointment. They move down 2 spots, and they're eliminated now going into the division round. They come in at 14. Seahawks I had started at 14. I moved them up to 13. 2 reasons we moved them up a spot, even though they're eliminated. 2 reasons. One, I thought the Buccaneers just had to be the last. They just felt like the worst team, out of all these teams for the regular season and that playoff game. But the Seahawks, did some damage in the first half. They were playing pretty good on offense. They see the explosive play ability, mainly a shot to DK, but Geno was playing very well. DK played out of his mind, and they were kind of giving the Niners a little bit of a scare, so they played pretty good in the first half. I thought they had some opportunities for some takeaways, and they didn't take advantage of that. They put themselves in good positions, especially in the first half, to do that. Didn't really get the job done. The defense was pretty bad. Just wide open lanes, guys taking very bad angles. And that was mainly the issue. The offense probably did enough. Could have done a little more in the second half. The defense was pretty brutal. Wasn't the worst defense of the weekend, though, I'll tell you that. The second worst, probably. But they move up a spot. Again, they showed me some good things on offense first half, but the Buccaneers kind of needed to be at the bottom there. So we'll see. It sounds like they'll extend Geno. Geno looked really good in that game, so I'm not against that. At the very worst, franchise tag them perhaps. Seahawks finish their season at number 13 in football. Number 12 is going to be the Dolphins. They started at 13, so similar situation, just move up a spot. Buccaneers had to move down. Dolphins put up a really good fight despite missing Tua Tagovailoa, Raheem Mostert, multiple guys too all over this team. But I thought those two really stood out to me. Obviously, your quarterback, but Jeff Wilson dropped some balls in this game, and Mostert really went off against the Bills last time. So honestly, if they, forget Tua, well, I don't want to say forget Tua. If they had Tua, that would have been big. That's their quarterback. But even take away Tua, if they had Mostert, could they have won this game? Possibly. I know the Bills kind of took control in the end there, but they did miss Mostert as well as some other players. But they put up a good fight. I mean, the first half of this game, the defense wasn't, for most of the first half, the defense wasn't great. That's kind of been the story of this year. It's like going into the year, Dolphins got good young players that are getting better, and they were already a pretty good defense. They take away the ball. We expected them to be better. So they're a little underwhelming. They weren't anywhere near the worst in football, so don't get me wrong there. But they were a little disappointing. And then started this game, it kind of was the case still, but it wasn't surprising because it's the Bills. But then they got going. They got going like this is the Dolphins' defense. Like, this is the defense we kind of thought. Even though they were giving up some yards and points still, they were making big-time plays. They were taking the ball away. I mean, Chubb was making plays. Phillips making plays. Holland, Howard, all the guys you expect to make big-time plays, all making big-time plays in the same day, the same game here. So I like that from them. And Skylar Thompson would like some throws back. His receivers would like some plays back. I mean, there was times where Thompson would throw a really good ball. They took the lead. They got the ball back, and they took a couple shots, and they were both dropped. That could have extended that lead there. They could have scored on that. So Thompson, it's definitely not all on him. The interception they threw to Elam, I really thought got things going. I think he read that right. It was cover two. I think he read it right, and he tried to hit the whole shot, and it was a little underthrown. But the main thing was, I think being a rookie. You see in college football when you realize teams are in cover two, that whole shot should be pretty open because the corner's just I'm going to do my job, he's thinking. I'm going to sit in the flat. NFL, they try to get the guys to follow the receiver as long as possible. If somebody comes into your flat, you run up. So Elam did a really good job kind of dropping back. So I don't think Thompson realized that was going to happen. So that was a tough one. It was a little underthrown as well. But if Elam would have been in his jurisdiction, I think it probably wasn't underthrown, but he was there. That's the issue. But overall, I mean, the tough task for Thompson. I thought he did a fairly good job. Given the circumstances, playing the Bills in Buffalo, in the cold, missing all those players, including your quarterback, your best running back. I think they did a pretty good job, and maybe some hope for the future there. So they come in at number 12. After being 13 last week. Ravens moved down a spot. They were at 10. And they actually played the Bengals, tougher than expected. It was more so a team like the Giants that were behind the Ravens had to move up. So it was more so that is why the Ravens moved down. If they had Lamar Jackson, they very well could have won that game. I know the Bengals were missing some guys as well. They played very well on defense. Even though it's a good defense, we know what to expect from them. I think it was still a little bit better for me as expected going against that Bengals offense in Cincinnati. So they played a hell of a game there. Just some questionable play calling, especially near the goal line. And then a questionable decision by Tyler Huntley when he was a little far to be reaching the ball up like that, and he was almost straight up and down. So just a stupid mistake there. But the play calling could have been a little bit different. I know Dobbins wanted the ball more a little bit in there, but and just some mistakes by Huntley in this game. So if Lamar would have been in there, that would have been big time. But it was a little disappointing that he didn't even travel with the team as well. I know it's issue when you have kind of pain, swelling, getting on a plane, but I thought they could have got him there, a different way. So I was a little disappointed by that. But, another, season that kind of ended maybe early because of injuries, 2 years in a row, perhaps for the Ravens. So they did play some good defense, like where guys like Kyle Hamilton are heading. And that defense should continue to be pretty strong. But mainly moving down because they're out, but because the Giants had to move up and they were below them before. Chargers will be next. They were 9. They moved down one spot after a loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. This was a tricky one, too. Maybe could have kept them at 9. Maybe at the top of the eliminated playoff teams. Because you could have kept them there because they played some really dominant football early in this game. So at least they showed some of that. But the more I thought about it was everything kind of went your way in the beginning. I mean, that first interception was tipped around multiple times, landed right in their lap, ended up with the score. I mean, Jags had a miscue on a punt where it bounced off a guy's helmet. And there was more than just that. I mean, the Jags weren't running the ball, too. We're getting ETN, their best playmaker, the ball, when that's how you beat the Chargers. So things were on every phase, every part of the game were really going the Chargers' way. And to get that big lead and to blow it, it's kind of bad. That's kind of bad there. So I think, if you look at the start and if that crazy tipped interception didn't happen, or if Peterson was getting ETN the ball, or if they were just focusing on the run, or Lawrence wasn't having the worst game of his life, or a punt doesn't bounce off a guy's helmet, I think, the Jags probably would have been winning this game the whole way. So you kind of see that. You start to realize as the game goes on and on that, head-to-head, the Jags are better head-to-head. Against the field, you probably argue the Chargers, understandable. But head-to-head, it kind of was more evident as the game was going on there. So that was a tough one for the Chargers. Again, things going their way, and they just couldn't close it out. So it's hard to trust that coaching staff. We saw they fired Lombardi this morning. It was kind of the right call. They probably need to run the ball a little bit more in the second half. They aren't in between the tackles, physical running team, several times a game, so that maybe they need a little bit more of that identity, but they did need to try to control a little bit more clock, but they kind of just need to get more points up on the board. So some questionable decisions by Staley in the second half. Mainly the one that stands out is they had a 4th and short in the Jags territory with like 8 minutes or so left in the game. And Staley's a guy that just goes for it. He likes to maybe too much. But that situation, I think most coaches in that situation, the playoffs, you have a pretty good offense, they would have went for it. Why? Because with a field goal or no field goal, it is still a 2-possession game. It doesn't really change. Getting a first down could result in a lot more clock. It does result in a lot more clock coming off, which the Jaguars' best friend was clock at that point. And then a touchdown while draining clock could, really extend that lead even more, a little different than the field goals. So I'd be shocked if most coaches didn't go for it there, and especially Staley, which is a guy. So basically he goes from one stream to another. It almost, in a situation like that, it almost feels like he's in his own head. Like, I'm going against myself, but I've kind of shot myself in the foot sometimes in the past. So it wasn't great there, and they end up missing the field goal, and the Jags take advantage down the stretch. I even thought the calls, not that I was disagreeing with the calls, but I even thought the calls were going the Chargers' way as well. So everything was kind of going their way, and they were taking advantage of it early, but not so much after they got that 27-0 lead. You just cannot lose that game there. I'm honestly surprised Staley's still going to be on the staff. I think he's a good defensive coach, but I guess he's likable over there. But maybe in his own head a little bit. And if you can't close out that game, what games are you going to close out? But it's good that Lombardi went, obviously, and they did miss Mike Williams. I think if Mike Williams was in that game, the same game where everything was going their way, I think they closed it out. I think the Jaguars adjusted defensively, where you saw some double teams on Keenan Allen, which makes somebody else beat us. And they really couldn't figure it out. They should have been able to figure it out because Everett was having a pretty good game. Get Eckler out in space. Line Eckler up as a damn receiver. I don't care. So they should be able to adjust and figure that out. But the Jaguars did a proper job adjusting there. And then to the last eliminated team, the Vikings, which was a tough team to rank too because their defense was so bad that I wanted to rank them worse, I should say. Because I'm trying to, this was maybe the worst defensive performance in the playoffs that I can remember. I've been trying to think of other defensive performances, and you could say there's been teams that scored a lot more points on defenses in playoff games. Teams scoring 40, 50 maybe in the past. I can't really recall a game. But in those games, I think the offense contributed to the defense looking that bad. Usually when offenses can't move the ball, they're making the defense go back on the field right away, or they're turning the ball over, resulting in more points. That didn't happen here. The Vikings offense was good. It was actually able to move the ball. They did not turn the ball over at all. So that didn't hurt the defense. And then you factor in the Giants, when they were moving the ball, even when they were passing, they were taking their good old time because they had to lead the whole game. We're going to run the clock. if the Giants needed to hurry up a little bit more and save more clock, they would have done that, moved the ball still, scored more points if they had to. So that's how bad the defensive performance but even going more into it, you kind of go back and look at the tape. They were just, something bad was happening. I mean, they had players in zone while other players were in man in the same plays. So I don't know what that was about. Obviously not on the same page, but that should not happen in the playoffs. Just a very poorly defensive coached game by Ed Donatel as well. I mean, just the players were not prepared, out of position. The Vikings defense started getting a little bit better down the stretch of the season because why? Because they were running more man and they were blitzing more. Especially last time they played the Giants, they did that. They blitzed Daniel Jones a ton. They created some turnovers, and they did it only a handful of times in this game. Their one sack came on one of those too. So very questionable there. So defense was really bad that I wanted to rank them lower, but the offense the offense did enough. It was very solid. Maybe minus that last possession. Wish they would try a little bit more to extend to that or get the ball beyond the sticks, perhaps. But the offense was on. I mean, Cook was able to run well. Jefferson was playing well for most of this game. Then they started doubling and tripling him a little bit more in the second half. Hawkinson was, I wish they would have got Hawkinson going maybe right from the start because he was unstoppable for the Giants. But they did enough offensively. Offensive line was a little off. Cousins was pressured on 49% of the plays, and he still didn't get sacked, and he was playing pretty well. He was throwing the ball pretty well. So I thought Cousins had a really good game. Minus throwing the ball short of the sticks on the last play, which I still question the play choice / design there. Maybe the receivers running the wrong routes, perhaps. But it seems like whenever they got stopped on offense this year was when Jefferson was kind of tripled, which he was in that final play too. So that was the tough part. But you can just see how good the Vikings offense is too, because with that bad of a defense, and they were still in this game, and we knew the defense was bad all year. They took it to another level in this game in a bad way. It was very bad, but if only they had a decent defense, we see a pretty damn good team here. So it was a tough one for the Vikings going out like that. And then next, the remaining playoff teams go. The Giants at 8, 7 and 8 were pretty close. But I did move the Giants up 2 spots here. They had a really good performance on offense in this game. And definitely deserve credit. Daniel Jones taking care of the football. He didn't really have any opportunities to not take care of the football, though. I mean, there's a lot of wide open plays, but knowing when to scramble, Barkley doing his job when the time was right there. Offensive line did a really good job. Brian Daboll, really good job game planning. They realized the Vikings are kind of receivers get separation on these Vikings when we kind of go to the inside there, so they did a really good job. Some crossing routes that really just had, and again, half the field was. That's the problem, though. That you got to give credit to the Giants and Daboll for all this, but I think when half the defense is in the wrong coverage, like half's in man, half's in zone. I think it's mainly defense. If you look at, was it more of good offense or more of bad defense? There was definitely good offense, but it's a fact that it was more of the bad defense, in that game. So I still want to see more from the Giants. Great in that game. More of a test against the Eagles defense, so what could you do? Defense, I guess, got enough stops for the Giants. The Vikings were able to move the ball, pretty well. And they were able to run well, too. They just couldn't run. They needed to save clock. So they needed to, they couldn't run more. So that's the thing with the defense. And it was more of, the Giants winning the time of possession, winning the clock, where the Giants defense didn't have to be on the field as much in a good way there. That was the big thing, too. The Giants' ability to run the clock while passing the ball still. They realize, I love that about Brian Daboll here. There's so many teams like, all right, we got to run clock because we're winning. So I guess we'll just have to run the football, and sometimes it works out. And then some teams are really good at running the football, so that works out as well. But the Giants and the Giants are pretty good at both. They can pass, they can run. They're actually better running the football. But they go, hey, we want to run clock. That's very important right now. We also want to keep scoring points because the Vikings are really good at coming back. What do we do here? The Vikings, we know we got a good running back here, and he's ran well, but the Vikings are much worse stopping the pass. So, hey, let's continue to pass the ball in the middle of the field. Keep it from going out of bounds. Keep him from incompleting passes. If it's a close play, have Daniel Jones scramble. Continue to run the clock. Continue to gain field and score points. So that was where they were absolutely genius in that department. So, yeah, excited for that NFC East battle this week. 7-up put the Jags up one spot. They started off really slow in this one, obviously with interceptions. Well, one was tipped around a bit, and then one should have been pass interference, obviously, but then a couple other ones were pretty bad from Trevor Lawrence. But I thought I was more getting on Doug Peterson early in this game because know your opponent. The Chargers cannot stop the run. It's a really good team that cannot stop the run. They're a very good pass defense, though. And they're pretty good. They got a good pass rush. They got guys that can take the ball away. So you're moving down. And it started with, them moving down the field on that second possession after that tipped interception at deflected multiple times interception. But, and then Etienne rips off a 12-yard run on a 2nd and 10. And actually, at that point, I'm like, this is kind of smart. Like, you could actually, because some teams, when they know they have to run, they get a little predictable, and they run on first down, then they pass. No, I like running on second down here. You try to get try to be unpredictable, get some yards in the pass, maybe rip off a big play. We can run on second because he should get some chunk yards because Etienne's a really good runner, and the Chargers stink at run defense, so I like that. But then all of a sudden, after Etienne gets that big run on second down, it's 4 plays in a row passing the football, and that kind of continued. Insisting, like panicking a little bit, insisting on the pass. Just know your damn opponent. Not only that, just a lack of getting Etienne the ball because this is your best playmaker. The other team, their defense struggles against running backs like that. So just not even getting them like a reception, anything like just getting him the ball in space. So then you go to the second half. They are mixing in plays to do that, to start the drive in the middle of the drive. It extends the drive. So that was key, just getting the ball. I think he had like 6 touches in the first half and like 14 to 16, somewhere in that range in the second half. Just mixing things in, not just having your quarterback drop back to pass and the Chargers realizing that's what's going to happen. It's very hard to play quarterback when that's the case. So I thought the worst coaching in this game actually was Peterson in the first half with some of the play calling, the bad game plan, just not knowing your opponent, kind of being stubborn. Second half was great, though. But defense getting stops that they needed to. That looked more like it. I do think the Jags head-to-head are better than the Chargers. I just what happened in the first beginning of this game was some fluky plays, some bad interceptions, bad play calling, not get your best player involved for some weird reason. And then they had that fumble on that punt that bounced off somebody's helmet. So I think the second half kind of better represents the Jaguars, head-to-head against the Chargers. So, I guess any 27-0 comeback in the playoffs is pretty surprising. But to me, as the game was going on, I was like, it really isn't that surprising because the Jags have the advantage head-to-head, like I've been saying. So, but an incredible comeback, obviously. And for whatever reason, the announcers was it Al Michaels and Dungy were not showing any emotion in this game. I kind of noticed that during it. I didn't really say anything, but then other people were saying things as well there. But yeah, Jags win a playoff game, so obviously they're heading in the right direction. You see the kind of the turnaround here for them, so pretty damn impressive. They got the Chiefs this week. Number 6 going to be the Bengals. They actually moved down 2 spots. Wasn't thrilled at their performance. I think they were fortunate to win, honestly. I do think they're an extremely talented team still, and every matchup is different, so they could even play. Who knows? They could play better against a better team in the Bills. Definitely possible. This is a different game plan, dealing with that mainly run offense of the Ravens. But they didn't have Lamar Jackson. The Bengals were missing guys as well, but the Ravens missing Lamar Jackson's a big one there. And I guess a big-time play on the goal line. That's the game right there. That's the game. I mean, making that play at the goal line and returning it for a touchdown, that's how the score ends. This is weird. The Bengals just couldn't get much going on offense. The Ravens were just pretty damn tight in coverage. I don't really have a problem with the play calling, really. Sure, it wasn't maybe perfect at some points. You could have done something, hindsight could have done something a little different here, but just couldn't really get much going. So maybe they said, I guess playing the Ravens 3 times, a third time, it's a weird kind of matchup. Maybe focus a little bit on next week because they were maybe a little too confident they had this game. That's definitely possible. Again, every matchup's different. I just wasn't thrilled with, in this power ranks when we update it every week. I wasn't really thrilled with the way the Bengals played, and they were fortunate to come out with a win. So I did move them down a bit, but they very well could beat the Bills. But I also factor in here, Jonah Williams going to be out, which isn't the best tackle, but he's probably their best tackle. So that's an issue. He's going to be out, and then Kappa, will he still be out? So you kind of identify, you evaluate what the Bengals are presenting us with. It doesn't feel like as good of a team as maybe a week ago I thought they'd be. So we'll see how they handle that. Bills-Bengals should be a lot of fun. Could go either way. 5, I moved the Cowboys up a spot. I mean, they dominated that game. They absolutely dominated that game. Not right away, though. The start was a little slow. I was like, kind of thinking, is this going to be a problem? The way they started on offense, I suppose. But they really got going in this game. Dak played maybe one of his best games ever, and he hasn't been able to do that in the playoffs. I thought he was extremely disappointing last year, like hesitant to make tight window throws, kind of seemed in his own head a little bit. This game was the complete opposite. And I know the Bucs haven't been the best team this year, but they got it's not easy. It's playoff football. They got some ball players on defense, so for him to go out and do that and for them to distribute the ball, Schultz had a really good game. The play calling was great. I think the first time it really stood out was a 4th down at the goal line. Just getting Dak out on that bootleg was just big time. I love that call. Love the way they sold that. And that kind of got going with the play calling there. So really good game from Kellen Moore, obviously. They just dominated this game. The way they're able to move on offense and distribute the ball, the play calling, defensively able to be stout, make plays. It makes you like the Cowboys, going forward. They do play the 49ers coming up, but it's kind of the momentum they needed because they can't get over that hump in the playoffs. So was very much thrilled with Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys in this game. Tougher task against the 49ers. That's why we got, throughout this game, I'm like, man, the Cowboys look good. I almost want to pick this team to continue to win, and that could be the case. But us also, you got to remember, it is the Buccaneers. They struggle a lot this year. There's going to be a lot tougher opponents. Every matchup's different here. But very impressed with Dallas Cowboys. They were deserving of moving up at least a spot. Bills did move down 2 spots. They were a little disappointing, even though they won, and every matchup is different. So they could even play better against a better team than the Cincinnati Bengals. Maybe they were too focused on that game and just too confident that it's possible in the game before. But they were a little sloppy. They'll turn the ball over. That's not great, but they make explosive plays on the ground. It does feel like they miss Brian Daboll still. They could have focused on the on the ground, the run game a little bit more, but they made enough plays on offense. And then defensively, and then offense with their offensive line though, kind of going back to that, a little inconsistent. They kind of give up that big time pressure. We saw the strip sack for a touchdown. Those things can't happen going forward. If they happen against the Bengals, not going to win. Or even after that, the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, they're not going to win. So that's tough. And defensively, it's just again last year they looked like the number 1 defense all regular season. Getting the playoffs, mainly the Chiefs game, it looked like a completely different defense, kind of getting exposed a little bit. And maybe the same thing here. They were giving up. I know they were scoring, getting turnovers or turning the ball over, and Dolphins were scoring that way. But they actually scored on defense. But, the defense, it looks like you can kind of beat it. You can kind of scheme something up. They run a lot of cover 2, so maybe it kind of gets predictable by this time of the year. They could get Micah Hyde back going forward, so that could be big. Obviously, they could get better that way. Missing Von Miller, of course. Don't get enough pressure, perhaps. So that's the tough part. Looks like in the playoffs, you can move the ball on the Bills. So maybe they're going to have to win in shootouts. We'll see. But a little, they look a little bit more vulnerable after this game. So that's why they're kind of moving down. Eagles didn't even play, and I moved them up 2 spots. That was a little disappointing with the Bengals and the Bills. They didn't feel as complete, and they could after this week. It's not predictions for the rest of this. These rankings aren't predictions for the rest of the way here, but those teams didn't feel as balanced, as complete as I thought. And the Eagles are that team. That's what I like about them. Like, they're pretty much good everywhere. I guess the big question is, how will they be for the playoffs? How is Jalen Hurts gonna be in the playoffs? What defense are we going to get? Because earlier it looked like it was dominant, one of the best football, not so much later in the year. So those are kind of the questions, but I like how they have multiple ways they can win. And they also are big winners when it comes to, I think they prefer to play, in my opinion, matchup-wise, and they would prefer to play the Giants here in the second round rather than the Cowboys. So that's big. The whole outlook looks better, too. They had a bye. They play the Giants, and then if they win, which they are heavy favorites, if they win, then they get the Niners or the Cowboys after they just beat up on each other. We thought maybe the Eagles would have to beat up. The Eagles rightfully so would have been favorites in that game, but a battle between their division rival and the Cowboys, while the Niners play the Vikings, which I think that matchup really sides towards the Niners, where, it's not like them and the Cowboys going back at it. So I think the Eagles are big winners on what happened with the playoffs in general in this. So I thought they were deserving of moving up, even though they didn't play. So they're at 3. Niners moved up a spot. Was a little scary after the first half. After the first half, I was like, Purdy, turnover-worthy plays, couldn't get the job done. This is going to be a problem throughout the playoffs, even though I was still confident with them finishing out that game. Second half was a different story. They were absolutely dominant in the second half on, kind of every phase. Purdy's best play was actually dropped by Ayuk too, but they kind of had everything going in that second half, and they were able to adjust in that, coaching, adjusting game plans. Very important in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, so that was big as well. So we're moving up a spot, but at any given time, because they're going to play better teams than the Seahawks, better defenses, at any given time, an inexperienced quarterback like Purdy can blow it. It could happen. And they'll play the Cowboys, playmaking defense. They got Parsons getting after the quarterback. They have Dan Quinn, who will have a great game plan. They'll have something ready for Brock Purdy. The key is running the football on the Cowboys because the 49ers sure could run that football. So that is the key. And the defense kind of just staying their identity, staying true there. They did have a problem with DK Metcalf in this game. The Cowboys got some ball players at the receiver position, but a different style than, like a DK Metcalf. So could they be better off, against the Cowboys weapons? We will see. It did look like Walker, when running outside, could get in space against the Niners. Could the Cowboys try to do that? So that should be a really fun game. I actually think that game go either way. But it's a rematch from last year. The Niners are at number 2. And I'm going to keep the Chiefs at 1. Didn't get to see them play, but there was no reason to change that. They were my top team coming in. Defense was getting better and better. Young secondary getting better and better. Pass rush getting better and better. Their run defense, for a change, is actually pretty good this year. Question is, will that continue in the playoffs? But it was top 10 this year, so it's kind of weird to see. And offensively, they have the best maybe in football. Just a different style, tough for teams to keep up with. And having the best player in football helps too. So they remain at 1 for those reasons. You can let me know your guys' rankings if you just want to rank the remaining playoff teams in the comments. That'll be cool as well. We'll have these updated with the teams that'll be eliminated from the divisional round, and then the teams that are still remaining after the divisional round. We won't rank the teams obviously that were eliminated from the wild card round next week. So plenty of playoff coverage here on the Goat House. We also have plenty of offseason content and more to come. So join us for all that. Be much appreciated. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is very, very important. Link pinned in the comments for that and anything else you're looking for. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.